We are now joined by a very special guest kicking off the show today. Detroit Free Press prep sports writer Mick Mccabe joins us now on the Oakland County MegaCast, and we thank him for being with us. Mick, thank you for being here today.
Hey, it's great to be in Oakland County when I'm in Allen Park.
Fantastic. How have you been during this? How are you holding up, Mick?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, I've got a little project I've been working on that's keeping me very busy. I couldn't go out for a walk this morning because it was raining cats and dogs, but, I've been able to survive.
That's good to hear. So high school sports are getting ready for the fall. Teams are practicing. Yep. They're taking their social distancing measures into account and their COVID-19 safety measures into account. But there's still that looming feeling that this may not happen at this point still. And even yesterday, particularly on the football field, it's such a close contact sport. There's a lot of bodily fluids that are being exchanged in the trenches, and a lot of touching that goes on of different surfaces, and of course player to player. And this week, of course, Clarkston football even shut down after a player had tested positive for COVID-19. Do you believe that football is in the cards for fall as we're seeing COVID-19 cases spike, and knowing just the nature of that particular sport?
Well, it's going to be very difficult. I think the Michigan High School Athletic Association is going to come out pretty soon and say, if we're going to play this fall, it will be football, it will be all the fall sports, cross country, so on, and boys soccer, and they're going to try and play it during the fall. I think what Mark Ewell is trying to plan for, is if there is an interruption, what do we do? Is there a 2-week period we have to cancel games? Because they're going to finish, if the football season does finish this fall, it will be Thanksgiving weekend. With the playoff points, because it's so different than every other sport, where not everyone is involved in the state tournament, that's going to be very problematic. But they're going to try, I believe, and play football in the fall. Now, we're still at stage 4. And if you look at the guidelines, according to stage 4, volleyball might not be able to be played until we get to stage 5, unless they change the language in that 63-page report that the governor had, a week and a half or so ago. But I think they're going to go ahead and try and play. I don't know what's going to happen. In the NFL, I think if a guy tests positive, it's okay. You're out for 2 weeks. We bring somebody else in. I don't think that's what high schools are going to do. It could be a mess.
Yeah, it does seem like that if one of these dominoes falls in high school sports, particularly in high school football, then the entire stack falls down with it, because you're around so many people as a high school athlete beyond the football field, where, like you said, in the NFL or other sports like the NBA that's in their bubble in Orlando right now, and potentially a smaller second bubble in the future in Chicago, where somebody comes down with the virus, they're put into a quarantine for 2 weeks, and somebody else steps up. And in this case, you can have that next man up mentality, next person up mentality with high school football, but that player still has interacted with hundreds of people, possibly thousands of people in a high school, and it creates a very sticky situation, especially coming up on a game. Maybe or someone tests positive a day or two before the game. You don't really know where the other players have been or how the other players are affected by COVID-19, and you have a possibility of losing some games along the way. We could potentially see a really sticky situation where we lose a few games out of the year for each team.
Oh, yeah, that's a distinct possibility for sure. But they have to do it uniformly, because you can't have the people in northern Michigan, where this isn't that big of a deal, so to speak. There aren't a lot of positive cases. They can't play 9 games, and then down here we're playing 7 or anything like that. So it could be sticky.
Have you heard any word from the MHSAA in terms of what they're discussing to deal with that situation? Because like you said, you have to act in a uniform way if you're modifying the season in any way for an abundance of caution or in fighting COVID-19. Any word from the MHSAA on their plans to take those actions should that need to be done?
Yeah, everything is on the table with them. One thing Mark Ewell has said from the get-go is if we start a season, we want to complete it. I don't know how, if football gets held up October 1st for a month, what do you do? I don't know. but they're considering every single possible pipeline they can figure. Throw any roadblock out there. They're considering, what do we do if this happens? All right, what do we do if that happens? So they're considering everything. And I think they'll come up with some really good solutions.
Mick Mccabe with us.
I hope we don't have to use them.
Yeah, hopefully I do too. Mick Mccabe with us, Detroit Free Press, high school sports writer with us on the Oakland County Megacast on a family of TV and radio stations. We talk about the historical nature of this time with COVID-19 looming over high school sports, potentially modifying or even shutting down seasons. We have players that are already testing positive in their practices for COVID-19. You recently made history in another way, celebrating 50 years of covering high school sports for the Detroit Free Press with your Golden Yearbook. Explain to us what is in the Golden Yearbook and how that tells the story of 50 years of covering high school athletes here in the state of Michigan.
Well, the book was never a goal of mine. They called up and the sports editor, Chris Thomas, called and says, hey, can you put together a dream team of all time? And I said, no, absolutely not. I can't go in the 30s, 40s, 50s, guys, who I never really saw or even heard of. He goes, okay, what was your first day? And at the Free Press, I said, June 3rd, 1970. He goes, okay, so you're just finishing your 50th year. I said, yeah. He goes, how about taking those 50 years? Can you do dream teams in football and girls and boys basketball? I said, yeah, I can. It's going to be difficult, but I can do it. It's possible. And then he says, okay, plus give me the top 5 teams in those 3 sports. So that's what I did. And then our former sports editor, Gene Myers, called up on the 4th, June 4th, and said, I read everything you wrote. That's our next book. So I've gone through every dream team from 1970 on and come up with the best football players, the best boys basketball players, the best girls basketball players. Then in girls and boys basketball, I also did like first, second, and third team in classes A, B, C, and D. Because to me, just saying, 5 boys basketball players and that's it. I mean, it's one thing when I was doing 23 football players. That's 23. But what we've done for the book also is I'm going back and for football, picking dream teams other than the overall dream team in classes A, B, C, and D, which is like Division 1 and 2 would go Class A, Division 3 and 4 would be B, and so on. And so we're including a lot of athletes there. We've got lists of all of the, we do Mr. Basketball, Miss Basketball. We're including like Miss Tennis, Miss Softball, Mr. Baseball, Mr. and Mrs. Bowling, Mr. and Miss Bowling. We're doing all those and getting them in the book too. We want this to be a pretty all-encompassing book. If you were an athlete, a really, really special athlete in the last 50 years, you're going to be in this book. And I know there's a lot of people who save stuff, goes in scrapbooks and all that. Well, we've got a scrapbook for you right here. And we think I know it's not completely finished yet, and they're pre-selling it now because we have to get a certain number of pre-sales before they say, okay, let's start the presses. But it should be out in October, I believe. And I've seen some pages that they've already done. Ryan is just a tremendous, Ryan Ford is a tremendous designer, and Gene Myers is an incredible editor. And those 2 guys are going to make sure this looks really, really cool.
Yeah, I've read some of the articles along the way as they've been released on the Free Press website about some of the top players, these top teams
Sure.
in all these sports. And they do go extensive, and they are definitely spreading across the 50 years that you've been covering sports with the Detroit Free Press. And it's a lot of great stories and great athletes that they look back to and you think, oh, I forgot about that guy because it's been so long and I haven't really thought about his time playing basketball or this team in football that was really strong. And then you look at our players today coming up into this upcoming football season, into the upcoming basketball season. Guys that we've already seen play a little bit, maybe like an Imani Bates in basketball, sure, or Donovan Edwards locally here in West Bloomfield in football. Who are some guys that are playing now that are coming up, maybe underclassmen or even upperclassmen that are poised for a strong final season that you believe in the next golden yearbook from the Free Press, or the next look back at the top 50 players and teams of the last 50 years that comes down the pike in Detroit's high school sports, who do you see some of those guys being?
Well, you got two kids at Clarkston, Rocco Spindler and Garrett Dellinger, two offensive, defensive linemen who are really, really good players. Garrett's already committed to LSU, and Rocco is going to commit pretty soon. Those two are kids who, if they develop and they show the same tenacity and willingness to work hard and improve, they could be guys who are really, really special down the road. There's a defensive lineman, Damon Payne, at Belleville, who's a terrific athlete, and he's a senior. And there's two juniors, Will Johnson at Grosse Pointe South, who is probably a defensive back, but he could make a wide receiver. He's really good. And his dad, Dion, played football at Michigan. And then Antonio Gates Jr. is a wide receiver at Dearborn Fordson. And he's shown an awful lot of talent over his first 2 years in high school. And he's got 2 more years left. And those two juniors are going to be guys that are really going to have breakout years this year as juniors.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of these guys play football. Dave Scott and I, of course, from Lakes FM, broadcast each of the West Bloomfield Lakers games. We've seen Damon Payne play. And I mean, for his size, he's so athletic, and he's got such amazing footwork on the defensive line. You talk about the Bruce brothers over at Clarkston and Spindler and Dellinger, who are fantastic and have been for several years playing at Clarkston High School on their perennial contending football team. And we have so many great athletes playing right now. It's going to be really interesting, especially this year with the circumstances we're under, to see those guys step up and maybe be even more inspired than ever before to leave everything out on the field and put their best foot forward each and every game, each and every week, to make sure that they leave their lasting mark, because who knows which football game is going to be the last one of the season, or which basketball game could be the last one of the year.
Yeah, I mean, who thought in March that we were waiting for the Ann Arbor Huron, Ypsilanti Lincoln district final, that we never get to it. And I saw the district semifinals, and I said, wow, I can't wait till Friday, because Ann Arbor Huron just destroyed them in the early in the season, and I wanted to see how much Ypsilanti Lincoln had improved and what Imani Bates was going to do about it. And we never got to finish it. And Detroit Edison girls were going for the 4th state championship in a row, and they never got to finish that either. And Iron Mountain boys, who had just been robbed in the state championship the year before, we wanted them to have their chance at making things right, and we never got to see them either. So it was pretty disappointing the way it ended. And God, I'm praying we don't go through that again.
Yes, I think we all want to see some sports. We definitely want to see some high school sports and give these athletes, many of whom played spring sports as well and had that season taken away from them by the coronavirus pandemic. And even those who, like you said, were in championship contention and ready to play for a state championship in the winter sports that ended up losing their seasons as well. We want to see them have a chance, especially those who are going into their final years or their final year of high school, have that chance to go. And I think that this could be a very special season coming up where these athletes are going to be more inspired and more hungry to play good ball than they ever have been before. Mick Mccabe from the Detroit Free Press. Anything else you'd like to touch on before we let you go today?
Well, talk to Governor Whitmer. And you know how she had that campaign slogan, fix the damn roads?
Yes.
Well, now I think she's changing a little bit to fix the damn roads, wear the damn mask. I'm trying to get her to say, fix the damn roads, buy the damn mask, wear the damn mask, and buy the damn book.
I love it. Mick. Thank you for being with us today. We appreciate it.
All right, guys. It was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, Mick Mccabe, the son of Swami from the Detroit Free Press, with us on the Oakland County Megacast.